So people come to me for these TV shows, and Audible is doing this series and stuff. So so what they do is, in order to make it interesting, obviously they add something, and then they ask me, "Can a lawyer do this?" And I'm like, "I can't do this. This is not what we do. We generally just restrict ourselves to this." But then they would be like, "No, let us add this. Let us this." Yeah, you have to show a very adventurous and very compassionate lawyer out there, and then you all want to be that, right? So that's there. So obviously, being a criminal lawyer is, in a way, it also looks simple, right? In a way, it looks simple because there's so much of commonsensical knowledge that seems to be out there, that you were guided by your instincts, that how can this person, those kind of logic can be applied when you are understanding a criminal psyche, and you are able to apply your everyday knowledge of how the human mind operates, and therefore you can say, how can a person of this kind of whatever can do this, right? All those arguments you make, but along with that, you also have to make those technical arguments for which you require a certain kind of human, some of which you can develop. The reason why we're having this session today is because some of it you can develop when you're a student. So if you're looking to become a criminal lawyer, you need to understand what it takes to be a criminal lawyer. What do you need to be, or what do you need to do when you are practicing? Because mostly what happens, people come with very high hopes that, oh, we will be, doing something very adventurous, and then they realize that they have to read this much bundle of papers every day and find something out of them, and it at some point you're just drafting maybe bail applications, just the standard format of it. So it may seem very dry at times, right? Sometimes it may be very tedious to go through so much, right? And you need that eye for detail. And is it something some people say, oh, you innately have it? But I'll tell you, nobody innately has it. Eye for detail is something that people develop by reading, by being an omnivorous reader. You read anything and everything that comes your way. That's how you become an omnivorous reader, and an omnivorous reader then develops an eye for detail, so that even if you're looking at it, for example, when you have familiarity of the words of any language, suppose you're conversant with English, then even if there is a spelling mistake, just by looking at it, you would know, right? Similarly, if you're not very familiar with, say, another language like Bengali, I can read, but it takes me, I can read, but I'm not that familiar as to look at a page and know what's written out there. But that's because, why has that familiarity not come? Because I haven't read much, right? So even if you have read a lot of literature in a certain language, that helps. So any kind of reading will help you to develop an eye for detail. It can even be your crime novels, it can be your textbooks. So if you have developed it in one place, it will be useful for you in another, right? So you need to develop a habit of reading. Now, some lawyers are great lawyers and they don't know how did they become so great, right? So that's what it is. One of the main reasons, and you see all these good lawyers are well read. So this has a relation with their acumen. Can you believe their legal acumen is directly proportional to how much they have read, right? So that's why I'm saying you can be reading anything, but just develop that habit. Because see, otherwise, charge sheets, etc., may be interesting for you to read, but the problem is you can't be reading word by word. If you're a slow reader, can't be reading word by word. How do you need to do it? You need to skim through documents to find out if there's something that's relevant for you, right? What is relevant for the other side? You need to sift through all the documents, witness statements, right? All of this you need to do. Sometimes the time may be very, very limited in your hands. That's the challenge, but it can also give you an adrenaline rush. It can give you a kick, when you are able to do it. You enjoy it all the more because you're fast at it. And that's your skill, right? That you can skim through documents in no time, right? And you can just pull out the moment you find something in your favor, you are like, yes, here it is. So that's what makes it interesting, right? But if you're slowly reader, I've seen a face saying, oh, ma'am, I have to read this much, these many pages, right? So then it becomes a burden for you. Then you don't enjoy it. So it's all about developing the ability to read. That's important, right? Skimming and scanning through legal documents. How do you develop that then? By reading judgments, scanning and skimming through judgments, right? And criminal judgments, criminal law judgments are generally easier to grasp. So if you start reading them, I don't like the India Qanun font, right? It's difficult to kind of read. SCC, etc. I prefer. So if you have access to those, whichever you just have to develop a habit, or you can open SCC, or you can open even Supreme Court website and check the recent judgments that have come. Just develop some habit of checking some judgments. It can be recent, it can be landmark. Like I had this craze when I was in second year to understand how constitutional law evolves. So I would keep reading the judgments. I always believed in reading primary source, right? I was somebody who was very interested in academics as well. So I would go to primary source and read them, and therefore I would read right from Keshwanand Bharti to everything. That was my target, to read Keshwanand Bharti as well, right? So whatever judgments I would read in my textbook, I would go to the library and try to read as much as I can, and that's how that habit developed of scanning and skimming through judgments to find precedents, etc. Right? We can also help you with those, but one of the main ways of doing it is to practice, right? But of course, there are techniques as well that you develop through practice. If you need any guidance on that, you can do that as well, but those will require separate sessions. Then you have, you then did scanning, skimming, you developed reading ability, you are also developing simultaneously research ability, right? So that you find, because these days, there's internet. Earlier, what used to happen, there was this Bhajan Lal case that everyone would cite, there would be Lalita Kumari, everyone would cite, but now everything is available to all lawyers at the click of the button. Just today in a matter, Justice Shakdar was saying that in the UK and elsewhere, in other jurisdictions, lawyers can even be disbarred if they cite a ruling which has been overruled. So we were discussing if that can happen in India, and we were like, no, we're still not ready, right? So that's the thing, you can't afford. And then Justice Talwant Singh said he had once fined a lawyer, not the client, the lawyer, 50,000. Right? So obviously you're not doing intentionally, but the fact is that's what makes you stand apart. That's what will make you a successful lawyer. That's what will bring clients to you. And trust me, a criminal lawyer, even a trial lawyer, can earn in lakhs in one matter. Because when someone is in jail, they're willing to pay as much to get out of it. And you require a certain kind of, the moment they see that there's this lawyer, and they don't see anything, they just see, oh, this lawyer argued and the person got executed. That's number one thing they see. Number two, what they'll see is, okay, what kind of offense were you dealing with? Okay, so I've also been charged with a similar, I'll go to him. Right, number three, was it high profile? So I was doing a bail matter of a high profile client once. I've done a few, but one that was particularly interesting that I was kind of responsible for directly was when, and this was like a media trial had happened where I was referring to it yesterday. I was that the husband was charged with the murder of his wife and her lawyer, right? Because there was this divorce proceedings pending and maintenance and stuff pending between them. And so the husband was charged. It was all over the newspaper. So though there wasn't much evidence except, so this husband was a painter, right? Both were artists. So he had done some project on menstruation. So there was these paintings with blood and stuff. So the police thought that was it. They didn't find anything. He had posted some Alvida song on Facebook. They used that as evidence. So this was nothing, but since media trial had happened, it took way longer for him to get paid. So if you're handling those kind of matters, all that, now you hear those lawyers who keep getting in Bombay, those lawyers who keep getting those big matters one after another. How does that happen? Just have to do one such matter, and then people keep coming to you, and then you can fix the price of your services, right? So that's the potential that this kind of practice has. Even if you're a trial lawyer, so you can be at any place, you can be at your hometown, you can be even at a place where you don't have much expenses to meet, right? You have your own house, for example, or you're staying in an ancestral house, you want to practice there itself. Low standard of living, you don't have to move to Delhi, right? What you can do is when an appeal is to be filed, then maybe you can, if you're good, then the client will pay for your travel for you to go to high court if it's in another city. You can argue the matter there. Sometimes the clients would trust you so much because you're so thorough in your job. That's the reason why clients would trust you, because they understand how much effort you're putting in and how much effort is being translated, right? So therefore, if you're thorough with it, they really get to know if you're thorough with it. And that's what makes the difference for them. So just make sure you do that. Make sure you're thorough with whatever case the client has interested you with. And that happens how your reading ability, that's it. So you don't get scared when you see. So I was doing this matter, it's an ex-education minister's matter. She's also the head of opposition in Meghalaya. So the charge sheet is from one corner of the wall to another corner and this much, right? So you can't even count the pages. I mean, it's so much. CBI has just given bundles after bundles without even paginating them, right? There is a matter I'm doing which is 7,000 something pages charge sheet. So all these things happen, but you don't get scared because you already know how to handle those many documents. Like when I was doing Shahid Balbaki's poetry matter, right? They were like, overnight I had to, and it didn't even take overnight. It just took a couple of hours to mark the relevant documents and it was done. It was like 5-6 volumes of files. So you need to know how to handle those documents. You need to know where to look for what you are looking for. That of course happens with time, but as an intern, when you go to do an internships in any offices, what you can always do is you can go through the files, get acquainted with what sort of documents are annexed with pleadings, what sort of pleadings are made, what do you annex in order to support those pleadings, what can be the nature of documents that can be used. These are the things you can pick up during your internship that you won't get time to do later on. Later on, people will be expecting you to come with arguments. People will be expecting you to annex the proper documents, right? So therefore, this is the time you can go through what sort of documents are annexed, what to look for in those documents, how people have taken, I mean, you will find them in the pleadings, right? The reference to those documents, which part has been referred to, why. So then next time you have, for example, say FIR in front of you, you would know what to look for. What all do you look for in an FIR? Yesterday I was showing, day before yesterday I was showing an FIR format. How much delay, the reason for delay, that's something you would look for, right? Date of occurrence, accused, have the accused been named, all of that. So that comes only after you have handled a few matters that you'll know what to look for. So if you want to be a step ahead of people, so you are not just competing with people who have the same numbers of experience, right? You're competing with people who have more years of experience. And you should be able to do that. How will you do that? By working harder than other students when you're doing an internship. And if you're working harder, you're actually reading files, you're actually developing your research skills. This is where you can develop it, right? Otherwise, in classroom, what you can do when you are reading textbooks, you can also read judgments along with that. Instead of when you're reading an article and you find a judgment, then you go to the judgment and you read it. That's really useful rather than you just, when we ask people to research, they just copy paste from an article. And I always say, don't go for secondary source. Somebody may have misinterpreted, somebody may have given it their own interpretation. People will pay you for your interpretation, unique interpretation. So develop that also. develop your ability to interpret law, your ability to interpret judgments. So when you're reading even Bare Act, why do we read ingredients separately and then cases supporting each ingredient? So that your ability to interpret it is developed. Your ability to understand what is required to be proved, that because that's basic. That's why you find loophole in the case of the prosecution. That's where you develop your own story of what happened that will absolve your client. What does need to be proved? What do you need to prove? All of that becomes important when you understand the provision itself. You're able to interpret it. So then what happens when different kinds of facts are thrown at you, then you can interpret it based on the provision. You know all the twists and turns you can make. That's number one. That's something again that comes with practice, that comes with the more cases you read. Again, reading judgments helps. So you keep your Bare Act and read the judgment together to understand it fully, how the courts have interpreted it, how the two sides, okay, that's another interesting thing to do, how the two sides have argued. Now you know, like when I was assisting Mr. Kushir, I knew as a matter of fact, that people with difficult cases, people who are on the losing side will come to him, right? So then it was interesting to see what would he argue. There were times when even I didn't know what he would argue, right? Or when the briefing counsel comes and he just says that this is what are the allegations, and then you're wondering what will he argue. That can happen initially. So how do you break that? There are times when you know, there are times when you don't know, there are times when you know one or two, and then more numbers are added to it, and then you realize in order to make it exhaustive, you need to brush it up more. How do you brush it up more? By when you're reading the judgments, you read the arguments made by the prosecution, you read the arguments made by the defense, right? Before reading them, so all the judgments you'll see are divided into 4 sections. First, they'll start with facts. Why the petitioner is before the court, what happened, all those will be referred to, right? You see how the court is putting the facts. Based on that, you think, what can be my argument if I am for the prosecution? Right? Sometimes the facts are narrated in a way that it favors one side and doesn't favor the side. Even judges writing a judgment, it's like his story, right? But still, you think, what would I have argued if I was prosecution? Then you think, what would I have argued if I was, for example, if it is a 482 CIPC is what? Quashing of FIR. Inherent powers that includes power to quash an FIR. So what would I have argued? These are the facts and circumstances of the case. So you're like, okay, fine, this much I could have argued. Then you start reading and you're like, okay, there was some other fact that was not written in that one paragraph that the defense used. So then what happens when any such case comes to you? Suddenly remember, I've read it somewhere, something. I don't remember what, where it was, but you would remember how to use it. Right? That's how you learn application. You learn application by doing it, by practicing it, right? For example, whenever a new device comes to my house, or even when I was younger, so nobody would touch it. That used to happen even in my first office. Coffee maker came, nobody touched it. They were like, Sanchita, right? When I came, they were like, this is the manual, this is the coffee machine, we haven't touched it, do what you do, right? So I was like, fine. So why does that happen to me all the time? In my house, even now in my present office, right? There's this machine that has come and I'm supposed to read and get it installed. Why? Because you have an eye for detail. You would read, and in your head, you are seeing how it is done. You're imagining yourself doing it, and then when you're doing it, you'll obviously it will strike you, but how will I put it in the wall? There has to be something, right? And then you look in the manual, there has to be something how to put it in the wall. Then be like, there's nothing in the manual, okay, I'll make a hole. I've seen it somewhere. That's how you apply it, right? That's how once you have known how to operate a TV using a remote control, then you know how to use it, for example, an Amazon stick or whatever kind of remote control systems you have in hand. You know there are buttons, you know there are symbols, right? You're acquainted to them. But you need to be able to use it once at least, right? Or you need to, when you had your smartphone for the first time in hand, what did you do? You try to operate it yourself, try to push buttons and see what happens when you press them, right? That's why kids learn faster. They have that sense of curiosity. So use this time when you're younger, you have a lot of sense of curiosity, use it to your advantage and keep knowing as much as you can. Application based knowledge, and that comes when you apply it. You keep applying as you read, as you learn, as you hear, you imagine yourself, then you won't forget. You imagine yourself standing there, right? So I used to do that even when I was reading novels. So I still have some glimpses of those imagination of somebody standing there, and I mean, very Mason standing there and doing something, right? So all those things can help you when you're reading judgments, just imagine yourself arguing it, how would you argue it? That makes it interesting, that makes it also you will be able to apply it when you have to, right? And then you okay, so now tell me, what sort of lawyer would you want to be? That's one question people ask, that should I start with trial? Can I directly go to Supreme Court? To what extent is it advisable? So many people will advise you to start from trial court if you want to become a good criminal lawyer. No doubt about it, right? Why? Because the application of procedure happens there. So when you see the procedure being applied in front of you, for example, cross-examination, etc., happening in front of statement, accused being called in front of you, you know how it happens. There's a difference between practice and procedure. You also see what the practice is, right? You also know the procedure on your fingertips because you have seen it happening. You have seen in the season memo how it's sealed, how the articles seized are sealed, etc. All of that you've seen. What does that the seal has on top of it? When it's opened in court, it has to be sealed, right? When it's opened in court in front of witness and it's shown, they identify it, right? What are the repercussions if that's not done? What are the repercussions if a car was flying in a go down with nothing, no this thing, and the music system, somebody took it out, you don't know who, and then the witness is being asked to identify the car, is that yours, right? All those things, you realize there's so much. There can be so many challenges to what you're doing at that time. But the more challenges you face, the more you realize how to solve these loopholes first, right? How to find answers, because some of these loopholes are part of the procedure of practice, not procedure, but practice. So you deal with it. You know that this happens. Now, if you have started from the appellate side, then you would want to question everything, right? Why was this done this way? And now, any trial court lawyer would know, or any judge who has been a judge in a trial court would know. They would say, no, but this is nothing. This is not even an argument. So that way it helps to know. I'll give an example. Some of you would have been there yesterday, day before, you would know. So that's when I realized the kind of difference a trial court work can make. So retired Justice Jaspal Singh, he was Punjab and Haryana High Court judge. He has also written a book on IPC. He was arguing the matter before Supreme Court. Right? He was very, very old at that time. But the way he was explaining to Justice Ajit Prasad why his client should be absolved, right? Because when you're arguing for the accused, you just have to create that doubt, right? There's a presumption in your favor. But the thing is that still that's such a difficult job to do. But and this was like you had so many eyewitnesses. He was this deceased was murdered by him. People saw it, right? In broad daylight. How do you then defend that accused? So first thing is you break that eyewitness when you are cross-examining. Who will get an opportunity to do that? The trial lawyer. The reason I didn't, sit for judiciary was that I enjoy being on this side so much. I imagine myself sitting on the other side and thinking of jumping and coming and arguing myself that this is the basic argument you need to get for this. So therefore, sometimes you will wonder why the trial court lawyer didn't ask, a specific question to the eyewitness. So you would feel that all the action happens at the trial court level and you want it, right? Therefore, what I would suggest is you have a blend of both, right? Because trial court practice may not be as rewarding at the beginning, though it may take you a longer time to establish yourself. So if you have a bit of appellate work as well, you have a kind of rich experience, then you have diversity in your work, you may get more cases. I have seen people who just focus on trial and they're really good at trial. So maybe you start from it, but you don't leave any appellate matter, right? So if your matter is going for appeal, if you're thorough in your job at the trial court level, even if your client was convicted or when he wants bail, like there's so many times during the trial itself, forget about conviction, even during the trial, there are so many occasions when people have to move to Supreme Court, have to move to High Court and then to Supreme Court. What can be those stages? Question of FIR. Yesterday we were doing, right? There can be bails, different kinds of bails being applied, and then they are being opposed. Then if the bail is rejected, they have to challenge. There can be cancellation of bail. There can be order on charge being challenged, right? In revision petition. Then you can move to the Supreme Court and etc. All of this can happen, and you want to leave the matter at that stage. You could want to keep pursuing it. So I feel now is the time when you can do all of it together. Mostly trial lawyers say, oh, I can only do trial. High Court, you come, you do. Or you go there to so and so, I'll refer you. I'm happy with that. No, you can do both. When you know the matter inside you, the appellate lawyer won't even work as much hard on the matter because he just has too many matters. He has to just do as much and get it done. If it's just for bail, he just focus on the ground. So he won't go into so many documents, etc. You are the one who's read it. You are the one who will be briefing him. Sometimes he may screw it up. So why not you yourself? Then people will know you as somebody who also appears in High Court. Your ability to get more matters will increase, right? So therefore, you should aim at doing both trial and appellate work, even when you're starting your career, right? Don't get into that kind of myth that no, I have to focus on trial. You can do both, it's possible, right? Also, always try to keep getting your own kind of matters as well. Whatever you get, and start with anything. Keep trying for that because your senior, I mean, sooner or later, you'll have to start your independent practice. So it always helps if you keep also. So one of the skills that you also need is how to get matters, right? So if you keep that alive for yourself, that I need to keep working to get matters. How? Because I have a senior to help me if I get stuck. Then how do I do this? So I have that kind of arrangement with the senior. And then you keep talking about the kind of matters you do. You keep talking about the kind of matters your senior does. Because you're also assisting, right? Own it up. I do this, right? And therefore, I should be getting matters. Therefore, people should come to me, right? Own up your work. That's important. That's something you should start doing at the very beginning of your career, right? And then, so I explained trial, appellate, Supreme Court, again, you can do that. You just need an advocate on a court to file it. You can have that arrangement with anybody, and then you can argue, you can come and argue yourself. There are people who do that, right? Or initially you don't want to, and then once you're acquainted with how it works here, then you can start arguing yourself. But if you have a kind of, you already know how it works during internship, or you are already well versed with the drafts and stuff, then of course it will help you when you start to practice. You can immediately start getting Supreme Court matters. Oh, you have a matter here. Oh, you have lost it here. Oh, you want to appeal. Okay, fine. Yeah, I can draft it for you. That's where it starts. You draft it. He shows it to the lawyer in High Court, and they say, yeah, this is fine, right? And then you become the High Court lawyer as well. You go to him, he also practices in High Court, right? He also practices in Supreme Court, he argues in Supreme Court also. You can become that lawyer right at the beginning of your career if you're acquainted with how it right? Then comes your so as I was saying, even when you're doing internship, look at the pleadings. What do people plead when they draft? I was doing bail applications yesterday. They're very specific pleadings that you need to have when you are drafting bail applications. Very specific pleadings when you are asking for coercion of an FIR. Very specific when you are getting on charge, discharge application. Very specific grounds are taken. What can you challenge? What can't you challenge? What can will the court look into? What not? Depending on that, there are these standard grounds. And once you know that, it's easy for you to draft. It's no rocket science. I think it's way easier than drafting, for example. And so it depends. It depends from person to person. Some people may find it more interesting to draft an appeal. Some people may find it more interesting to draft an SLP. So basically, it depends on some people enjoy finding loopholes. I think one of the reasons why people want to become criminal lawyers is because they enjoy finding loopholes. Loopholes in prosecution story, loopholes in a statement of a witness, all of that, right? And then through cross-examination, you break the witness, all of that you enjoy doing. So therefore, you'll also enjoy finding loopholes in the trial court judgment. That's what is required when you drafting an appeal. You just need to know what are the standard grounds that people take, right? For different kinds of offenses, how do they draft it? For different kind of formats, how do they go to it? How do they approach it, right? All that you need to be acquainted with, and then when you start with practice, of course, you keep getting better, right? That's one, and that's why I keep saying that when you're competing, you are not just competing with freshers, you're competing with people who have more experience. Why would people come to you? So you need to start working now itself, right? Okay, then comes, I have explained you pleading. Sometimes you may need to explain the delay, for example. Sometimes you may not want to explain it. And so it depends from it. There are factors that you need to keep in mind, how much to put and how much to leave it for later, how much let the other side first raise it and then you will come to it and rejoin. All that depends on, so these are the different kinds of strategies that people take. For example, in one of the cases, what we did was when the written argument, so the judge asked written arguments to be filed by both sides. What I did was, I did my research, but I didn't draft it. So the local counsel drafted it. He showed it to me. I was like, yeah, now you can file anything. Let's first argue, then we'll file our final written submissions, right? So he filed it. So the other side thought they have a strong case, right? Because they had not seen my research. So some people hide their cards in pleadings, right? So how much do you hide and how much do you show? So that the judge at least issues notice in that case. So that much, of course, you're pleading. So these are the different strategies we do. So then what happened in the written arguments? It didn't go, in the reply wasn't there. So they just decided to argue one point because they thought they have a case in this. And I had found judgment. So this was a single judge bench case that they were relying upon. And I had found DB judgment that the single judge bench had not considered. Therefore, it was per incuriam. The judgment they were relying upon was per incuriam. I showed that. And I believe the senior, and it seemed very easy for the seniors. It's for the hard. But that was like, then I later said, what, I had hit a dead end. When I didn't find, I realized that they're relying on this case. I was like, what do I do now? Because we had already missed the opportunity to settle. What do I do? So then I started finding case, and then I realized, so that's what. So your research, if you have developed your research skill to this extent, then that's the answer. Sometimes the answer is not in facts, the answer is in law. Mostly for lawyers, the answer is in law. In criminal matters, sometimes it can also be in fact, and therefore, understanding of criminology can also be. So there's a reason why a certain element is there in certain, as a requirement in certain, right? So it will make it more interesting if you also have an understanding of criminology, or how, even if you have a general understanding that works, or even if you have read it, that can sometimes help you in developing your arguments, right? So there can be different ways in which you can have an access to develop your arguments. It's not something that can come out of uh, out of blue to you, that one fine morning you get up and you're like, yes, I have arguments. When you have to develop your skills to even develop arguments. Just having, I remember this. There was this local lawyer here who would tell me, you should be able to fight. When I was a student, the advice he gave me was you should be able to fight. But argumentative skill is different. For to develop argumentative skill, you need to understand exactly what you're doing. It's just like genuine street fight, and this is different, right? If you have genuine street fight skills, that may not apply here. But yes, if you have the ability to use logic, etc., that can help you, right? Great. But still, you will need to understand the intent of the legislature. It just makes your job easier when you are talking about, say, common intention, or you are talking about unlawful assembly. Why is the provision worded the way it is worded? Common object, common intention. So these are not just things to be mugged up. These are the things to be actually, if you get why the legislature has used this word, what is it getting? Why is 120B different? Why is it a substantial offense? If you keep asking yourself these questions, and if you start finding those answers, your own innovative answers for it, that will help you. That will help you, that will develop your argumentative skills. That's how you develop it. Some people just think and develop, some people write and develop. Do that, analyze, right? So research skills, argumentative skills, reading ability, right? We've covered all this. And then you become Ramdeep Malani. Right. So what else? Okay, so let's take a few questions and then let's proceed, right? Anybody has a question? Please raise your hand.
Yeah, if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand. We'll be unmuting you and you can just ask directly. Or you can just send in the chat box too.
Right. So can you please,
Yeah.
Satyanarayan?
Yes, Satyanarayan. I'm from Bangalore.
Hi.
Namaste, madam.
Namaste.
Yeah. See, I'm LLB student. I'm studying these Supreme Court cases and our High Court cases from past 2 months, and so many sections also. But I'm unable to remember those case studies. When the time comes, I have to apply, right? In my mind, I know that yes, I have gone through that. But at the time comes, I'm unable to remember the section or a proper judgment. Sometimes I used to forget the English words, what was they were used that.
Right.
So that
Good.
was the
Very
main
good.
intention in my mind is, if I still go through the other cases, what is the next two
Use.
months?
Right.
What is the
This is a
use?
very,
Yeah,
very good question. Thank you for asking it. So some people feel discouraged. So I'll tell you, initially when I felt discouraged,
yeah,
that I need to remember. If I don't remember, then how would it help me in future? Right? But I'll tell you how it helped me. I nonetheless read whatever I read. Maybe I would have read a lot more if I didn't face this discouragement. So good you have asked this question. So let me tell you, you have to basically not remember. What you have to do is you need to familiarize. How you familiarize a
okay,
language, similarly you familiarize legal language, right? So it's not, so the other day I was trying to learn a new language, so I was it's very difficult at this age, right? So I was trying to remember the words, but when we were learning, when we were young, when we were infants, when we learned new language, how did we do it? We would keep hearing sentences and suddenly we would know what it means. We would say it, right?
yeah,
Similarly, if you keep reading and you keep familiarizing that legal language, just keep reading. No need to recall, remember. When you have to actually do it, you'll see automatically it's happening when the time comes, right? So, for example, you don't have to remember when you're using a remote to switch on a TV. Even if you get another remote, another brand, you know which button to press. Automatically, your hand is there, right? You know where the
yeah,
power button is. You've never tried to remember those, volume key, okay, this arrow is volume key. Have you made some chart for it? No. So you don't need. And as far as provisions are concerned, you always have the act to refer to. Don't try to work them up. Yesterday was showing schedule 1. I mean, I broke my head on understanding sessions trial. Which matter will go to the sessions? And you always thought I should remember which matter should go to the session. No, you don't need to remember. Once you do a case, you remember that for the rest of your life, okay, this case goes to the sessions. Yeah, it gets committed. So then you remember. Once you have been through that process in that case, then you remember. Like I have dealt with a few PC cases, now I know. Right? But if you have not handled the case, it's impossible to know it the way one would know when one handles the process. So you don't try to do that. The most you can try to do is to get acquainted, get familiarity, get acquainted with the kind of arguments that are made. That's why I said when you imagine yourself and then you read, then you develop a kind of application-based knowledge. Otherwise, what you do is try to remember. So therefore, I'm asking you to be a little creative, to first read the facts in the first whatever paragraphs, then you also know how to skim through, scan through judgments. You're learning so much, even without realizing that you're learning, right? You're actually learning where to find what. So these days, I just have to look at the beginning of the paragraph and I'm like, okay, this is prosecution submission. Where does it end? Okay, it ends here. Then comes your defense submission. Okay, then accused counsel has submitted. Where does it end? It ends here. Then comes the finding. How do I know this? Because of my familiarity with reading judgments, right? So I can quickly pull out the findings of the impugned order. I can quickly say why he was wrong. I can quickly say which were the arguments that he should have considered, he didn't consider, right? All of that I can do just because of familiarity. And then what kind of arguments can you make? That familiarity also you get when you, that's why I said you first imagine and then you read, then it's like taking you a step further in, developing it. So you otherwise what will happen? You may remain where you are, right? Even if you get familiar, you will be like, this is. But when you first think and then you read it, it's like you're examining yourself, how well you're doing, and then you are developing it further. So wherever you reach after reading it, stays with you. Don't worry about it. Don't think you have to remember everything. When the time comes, you'll automatically know you have read it somewhere. That's why I said you won't remember where you have read it, but you would remember. So if you've read, say, 5 cases on quotient, it can't be that you won't remember. It will be useful for you. But if you read one and you leave it somewhere, then there will be chances. But if you have read a few in one go, then you would remember what the content was. Like, for example, one of my friends asked me to find a case on magistrate's power to suppose a closure report is filed. Suppose the police didn't find any evidence against the victims. They filed a closure report, and the magistrate says, "Now, I'll take cognizance." Then you are like, "No, you can't." But how do I know you can't? I had somewhere read some judgment a few years back, and I know he can't. But now I have to find afresh that judgment, right? Because I just remember this much. But I have also seen people like, there's this lawyer, Mr. L.R. Singh. So I was doing an internship with Mr. Khurshid when he took me to him. Right. So what had happened was an election petition was to be filed, and there are different limitation periods for filing different petitions, right? So some are same, for some it's different. So by election petition, it's different. For other SLPs and stuff, it's the same. So he would ask, Mr. Khurshid would ask the clerk, the limitation, they would say, 10. Now with election petitions are very particular about the limitation period, and the limitation period was gone. Instead of being upset with the clerk, being angry at him, he was like, how would he know? It was something we were supposed to tell him, we were supposed to remember, right? So then what he did was he went to Mr. L.R. Singh. We went with him, introduced us. And then what L.R. Singh did was he took out a notebook from his pocket, this tiny notebook, and it seemed very old. And then he opened and he said, yes, there's a case. You would note down the case. This is the case in which delay was going on. So some people, and I think it was a telephone directory. Yeah, I was so amazed, and that's something that a person of that generation can do. These days, we think everything is we can find easily, and therefore we don't do it. But that's such an amazing practice. I still remember, and it was a very torn kind of notebook. So Mr. Uji said he used to have it since his student life. It wasn't the same though, but he would keep duplicating it. Right. So that kind of work also you can do. You never know what will work for you. You can develop your own practice when you're a student. You have ample time during this time to kind of have this kind of application-based knowledge, even if you don't remember, even if you don't want to remember those cases. That's fine. Just familiarize yourself with the legal language, with the way people argue, right? The kind of arguments you can question what sort of arguments they make. You'll read 5 cases and you'll be like, oh, it's the same. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. One small question, madam.
Yes, please.
I am 37 years old. I was ex-military man.
You were
Ex-military.
right.
Okay. Now I am working as an human All India Association, Human Rights Association, Chief of Telangana State. So is this LLB will be useful for my future? Because I'm 37 years old, right? So how can I proceed? Because I'm very new to the civil life. I came directly from Indian military. After that, again, I was joined here, and now I'm working here. And also now I'm working in India in a US company as an internal auditor.
So one thing I'll tell you about life, you don't know. It's all about your intention, your level of confidence, how, where, which opportunity you grab, how you look for opportunities, all that. Sometimes it may come knocking at your door, sometimes you may have to look for it for something where your experience in all of this will help you with a law degree, right? So it can be anything. For example, my father was in BSF, okay? Then he took voluntary retirement and he joined back when they were first hiring security officers. Like nobody thought that a military man can join back. That opportunity opened, right? And then while he was working there, so it was the first time banks were hiring. Now they even they didn't know what job profile they should have. So what my dad used to do, he also used to take up a lot of general administration work. So he knew how to open a branch and all of those kind of stuff. He would just keep doing. He learned all sorts of computer programming without thinking how it would help. It was just to I mean that can be one of the ways of doing it, right? And so he kept getting more and more opportunities. It didn't end there. Now all his life he was on a certain scale he would have got that much um, salary for sure. But what happened, because he was constantly developing his skills, post his retirement, he started just helping people in filing e-tenders. Now, e-tenders was a new concept. So he already knew how it's done. Since he was also handling general administration, he started helping, and also because he was dealing with security operations. So he started helping first with e-tendering, and then somebody who knew him when he was handling general administration, he was somebody from quite higher in hierarchy. His son-in-law had a security agency, providing security services, a big one. They made him like the country head stuff, and and that's how it happened. So you never know. So it depends on how you try to use, how you keep developing your skills in which direction. And if you have a clear plan of what you want to do, it all depends on what you want to do. If you want to practice law, great. So there's nothing like, oh, I'm too young. You can always use your experience. You always say, oh, I have this experience. It's always enriching, right? So you need to be able to use that while you're talking, you're selling your skills, right? Like how that helps you, right? So
Okay.
that's one of the ways of working on it, but depends on what you want to do, right? If you really want to use. And as you said, you're working with an organization. Even there, I mean, it's up to you to explore, to even develop a kind of vertical, say, in their organization, because you have knowledge of, everyone needs some knowledge of law, right? So you can do that, but be proactive, right? Tell them, let's have a vertical, let's do this, right? Or I can give you legal support. What can I do? What do I need in order to give them legal support? So let me read about that. Let me start doing research on that. Something of that sort. You need to work on yourself, and you need to keep talking about it, what you are working on, what you are reading, what you can do.
Okay.
Perfect. Who else? Can we unmute Akhil and then Nandini?
Good evening, ma'am. This is
Hi,
Nandini.
Nandini.
May I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead, Nandini.
First of all, it's a delight and a pleasure to speak with you, ma'am, especially on a subject as criminal litigation. My question is a general question in the sense I am 43 years old, older than the gentleman who came before me, and passed out the LLB in 2021 August. And my desire is to pursue criminal law. But the moment I tell to my folks or anybody that this is my interest, there is instant displeasure or unease or fear. "Arey yaar, tum to ladki ho. Why do you want to go into that kind of a field wherein there are criminals and you do not know what kind of people you're going to deal with and what kind of repercussions you might have as a single woman? Um, Go towards the civil side, handle diverse cases, you get your money, you'll have a comfortable, settled life." I'm sure that could be true. I don't know. And because I'm a novice in this, I would like to ask your opinion and your experience as a lawyer working in this particular field.
Right. Nandini, I would like to ask you, what would you want to do? Please keep her unmuted. What do you want to do? Did we lose her? Please unmute. Oh. Nandini, can you please
Yes,
unmute
ma'am.
yourself?
Now
Yeah.
I've been unmuted.
What do
Well,
you want to do?
I want to pursue the criminal law field because it seems very interesting. No doubt it's going to be tough, but it's something that I would like to explore.
Then do it.
But at the same time, the concerns which they have put in my mind, for example, for a woman, how safe is the environment, or how feasible is it for a woman to go ahead and pursue that? I do have some doubts on that aspect also.
You'll
So,
figure it out.
okay.
You'll figure it out. So you may have, I mean, different people do different things. There are female lawyers who do trial matters, who just go to court, do it. They know how much to distance themselves from an accused. Once I was doing a matter and I asked someone very senior, I said, when is it that a lawyer's life is in danger? Because I was for the complainant.
Right.
And I didn't like it. It used to make me very uncomfortable seeing the accused just standing there and staring at me. So he said, see, the accused, even if he's on the other side, they'll never harm the lawyer because they don't know tomorrow they may need to hire you for some other case of theirs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? So unless you are a kind of a family member, etc., then in fact I was very close to the complainant side and had received a threat. And therefore I had asked this question. So he told me, unless you're close to the family, etc., then they see you as, so they are not that close to them. So
Right.
then they see there is a difference in their level of power, or whatever you could say. Then they may want to harm you. Otherwise, they won't. Right? So there is a very, very, when you enter the field, of course, you will feel a little worried initially or bad, but when you have no option when to handle it, some people have some things, feel something, some people don't feel anything, some people just depends. Varies from people to people. Some men can also have these feelings, right? So,
Right.
but when you keep doing it, then you realize it's all very professional out there. And it's always possible to keep things there, maintain a boundary. And that you have to do even when you're handling divorce matters. I mean, you can't bring it home. You're,
True.
I mean, tell them that
But I feel it's more of a psychological perception per se, ma'am.
of
Because
course.
you know,
See, now tell me. So this is like a separate session altogether where I discuss the stereotypical notions that people have associated with what a woman can do, what they can't do, and there's a particular agenda behind it. By the way, right? Earlier, people would say, "Oh, women can only teach. They can't work in hotels. They can't work here. They can't work there." Right? They can be nurses. Right? They
yes,
can't be doctors.
right.
Right? Even if so, you hear like male nurse, you hear female doctor because female doctors are there, and oh, you can't go there to study, you can't do this. So these are all barriers, these are all obstacles. You need to see it like that. There was a time when even though if women were holding an umbrella and walking, people will throw stones at them. How dare you carry?
True.
And now it's the opposite at some places. Now men don't carry an umbrella even if it's raining because it's threat to them. So don't go by all these standards, right? These are all a way of, these are past struggles. We all have to deal with it in different ways. So you will find again very few outgoing women counsels. It will be difficult for you to get cases as a woman. There will be so many barriers, right?
Right.
Class will be a barrier. All of these things will be a barrier that you will realize, oh, there are so many unsaid things in the profession. So, but then that's the thing, you will know how to play with it, you will get used to it. All of that is part of the profession. You'll also know how to use your gender then. So,
Okay.
yeah. So I think that's another level altogether where you know how to use it. Yeah, sometimes when women go to a police station, it becomes easier to get an FIR registered, etc. So sometimes male lawyers send their female juniors to do these jobs, right?
Right.
The police officer will be respectful to you.
True, true, true. Certain
He's-
advantages which you can make use of, I guess.
Sorry?
Certain advantages which you can make use of.
If you
So,
have to deal with it, so you will learn how to use it in your favor, right?
right. Thank you so
Can't be
much.
all bad.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Right. So there is a question from Shreya. Shreya, yeah. Ma'am, I'm a first generation lawyer, graduated in 2020 and working in the field of corporate and civil litigation for past 1 year. But I have interest in criminal litigation. I'm not able to find any good criminal office. So how to make links and find a good office, just how to approach and start so that I can develop a strong career in this field. So Shreya, the way to do is, of course, to keep approaching. One way, of course, when we go at open, then you can go to magistrate's court, listen to who all appear in that court. There could be some counsels who you see are very busy. There are some counsels who see who don't have any juniors, but they seem to be doing interesting matters, or you can see yourself working with them. You can approach them if you want to trial stage. So these are the different ways. So when courts open, of course, there are various ways of doing it. Otherwise, LinkedIn can be useful for you to get in touch with criminal lawyers, right? But along with that, keep brushing your skills so that you know how you can offer it, what you got to offer. Because if you don't have anything to offer, you're just working civil side, then people will be reluctant to hire you. I remember I had once referred somebody to Arundhati Kaju, and she was like, that she has only worked in civil and corporate, right? And I was like, but she wants to do criminal. So it gets very difficult to them unless you show something that will make them believe that you have that acumen as well, right? So maybe you can start writing articles or something of that sort, or you start somewhere, and then once you have experience, then or join an office where they have both. They do both civil, corporate, and criminal as well. And then you tell them, please assign your criminal matters. I'm interested in criminal. And then you build it from there. Then wherever you go, you can tell them how to handle these kinds of criminal matters. Right? Okay, can we unmute Akhil, please?
Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Akhil. How are you?
Ma'am, I am good. Ma'am, I wanted to ask that what are the key points on which we should focus so that after graduating we get a job under a senior advocate or in a law chamber?
Right, so depends on a lot of factors. So in my case, I don't know if you know, so I had a lot of options to choose from. So I always consider myself fortunate. Nobody asked for me CV and stuff for me jobs. Why? Because I was good during my internships. I was better than even their associates. And they got opportunities to show it. Right? But you don't get opportunities unless you create it for yourself. And that you can create only when, so I'll tell you what happened. What happened was on my first day of internship with Mr. Kushi, there was nothing, nobody is asking you that you have to do this. Nobody says that, right? So I was sitting and I was like, I need work. So I was given 2 files. So people thought, done, now she won't ask me work. Right? So I went through the entire file. It took me a lot of time because it was the first time I was going through a file. But I went through every bit of both files of this thing. And then he had also said that, it's been going on for over a decade. So even the judge won't remember what has happened and stuff. So still I went through. The other intern, what he did was he just went through the main file, some parts of it, just the pleadings, so that he knows what has happened, so that if somebody asks, he can say, oh, I've read the file, this is what the matter is about. Shortcuts. But what happened was nobody asked. Nobody cared. But when the matter was heard, the court asked Mr. Kushi to give suggestions what should be done to solve the issue. So there was as such not much to decide. So the court asked what to do. We came back and they were discussing now. There are big lawyers discussing why should I open my mouth. But then finally I thought, why should I open my mouth? Because I know something that they are not discussing. What if it's a trivial thing? What if they already know? What if it doesn't make sense? This is like I'm in my just second year. And I still said that, there used to be this there, a fact that they didn't remember. It was a decade-old case. They didn't remember that fact, and nobody had time to go through this file once again. So I said it, and then they all were like, so sir didn't even know this fact existed. And then the person who drafted it was like, oh, it was like as if it was something very new to him. And then he remembered, oh, yes, it happened. It was there. And then the client also said, yes. So he also saw a glimpse of hope that, something can happen in this case now. He was very, very, very impressed. Like the client was kind of folding his hands and almost falling on my feet. And even Mr. Krishna thanked me while leaving that day. I thought, okay, fine. Then what happened? Then there was another opportunity that I got, where it was just about interpretation of a judgment. It was in Hindi, and sir was just getting confused. Somebody had to just give him the right English word for it. And the answer was deemed possession. Bedakhal mana javega. And he sometimes it happens, you just get stuck over trivial stuff. What is bedakhal mana javega? Either the court directs him to be dispossessed or evicted, or it doesn't direct. What is bedakhal mana javega? Now he asked so many lawyers, everybody was like he doesn't know, how can I know, like that kind of approach. So I was like, okay, 2 days passed, and I was like, now I have to say whatever I thought. So I had that thought. It was just a thought. It was just a guess because I'd heard that thought somewhere. So finally, I said it. Again, it was said. Right? So from interns, people don't expect much. So sometimes that works. And he's a senior lawyer. His expectation was way, way, way less than what we would expect our interns, right? Because this generation has done a lot of stuff during the internship, so they know what interns are capable of doing. He didn't. He just thought they've come, you go. That's it. So, so that's how I was. He remembered me very well when I was not in touch with him at all when he was the law minister. I was planning to go for my LLM. I went to him for a reference. He wrote a very good reference that I did, and I realized he remembered me very well. And then he offered me a job by himself. The other person I worked with before that, when he offered me a job, again during an internship, again a long story, during an arbitration case, I remembered that Indian Partnership Act says this, and therefore some English case he was reading would apply. That helped. And everyone sitting in that room was stunned that the learned intern just now told this to me. And who was this person? Mr. Bharat Tripathi. He was the ESG at that time, representing Gail's legal officer. He was impressed. The briefing counsel, Mr. Simran Mehta, he was impressed. So I got to impress so many people in one room, 3 arbitrators, ex-retired judge, all of them. Super impressed. So these are the opportunities you should be willing to grab when you have internships. That's one way of doing it. Other ways, of course, is to be visible by doing, participating in moods. Again, you are being judged by again people who judged me in handwritten and still remember me. So these are the things you can do: participate in extracurricular activities, write articles. You never know who is reading it. All that helps. Sometimes people hear your name and they're like, "Oh, I have heard that somewhere. Do you write?" That can happen. People may be researching on a topic, and your article comes. All that. So you can do such things now. But keep working on yourself so that wherever you start, your growth in career is this, right? What else? Can we unmute Shiv?
Yeah.
Yes, Shiv. Shiv, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. I'm Shiv
Good
Shankar.
evening. Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. How are
This is
you?
the first time I'm interacting with you. Fine, thank you, ma'am. And I really had a nice discussion, conversation, what we have gone through so far. It was so very much interactive and a lot of information. I have just a small question. I'm an engineer by profession for last 35 years practicing. I'm about to retire in 2 years. I have done management in marketing, MBA. And at the verge of retirement, I thought of let me contribute something to society, not for money, just for helping society. And what to do as an engineer, probably I found because I've been industry all through. I know how far I can, though I've been must be contributing for nation. I was in defense industry, but here in the public, I want to interact, and therefore I took admission in law, LLB. I've completed 2 years. I'm in fifth semester now. So probably information theoretical I will definitely get after completing my degree in essays another 6 months. How far it will be useful to make use of this information or how to acquire the practical knowledge, because at this age working with some senior advocates, how far it will be feasible for me so that I can contribute to society a bit of time left.
So first, Shiv, you'll have to kind of have that clarity. How do you want to contribute? So, do you want to actually practice law? Do you want to argue cases for your clients? Or do you want to do something of that sort that you want to give legal advice to people? Right?
In fact, madam, this is the my query. I'm in ambiguity. Probably it looks to be more clarity for me to be a legal advisor than may practice in the court. Because practicing requires a lot of skill and talent which has to be built, not just to be the knowledge. So probably I may not have that much time to make that much.
Okay, let me tell you something. A lot of people have been raising this issue. I feel age is an advantage. When you stand in court and you have gray hair, that's why lawyers don't dye their hair, right? When you have gray hair, people are actually waiting for the hair. And for women, it's even way better. To look older takes a longer time.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. So the thing is, people want to look older. Why? Because there is a lot of ages. When I say ageism, I just mean that, people who are of a certain age, they are considered senior. So you don't have to be designated senior. If you're senior, then people are considered more, that they assume they have more experience, because this is something where you use a lot of application-based knowledge, and therefore it's assumed that a person who is senior in age, will have more experience and thus more application-based knowledge. So that assumption is going in your favor. The only problem is when that assumption is in your favor, there's also expectation that you will be going to court. Nobody will give you that benefit that youngsters get when they initially go to court, and even judges are very helpful and stuff. That advantage you will get. But let me tell you something. Even like I told you, I was great, and people hired me, called and hired me. But the opportunities I could get to argue matters was less than what my male counterparts would get. Right? Though I was making the entire file, my research skill was great, it was so good, I was asked to research on all matters of the all the back work. But when it came to arguing, I didn't have as many opportunities initially, because of which I was hesitant, right? So even at a later stage when I had to start, I started quite late actually. So I did 1 or 2 in between. And in fact, later I realized it's something else that was happening, why I was not getting as many opportunities. It's something which is very, very, it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult to explain to people, it's difficult for people to understand, but this is a fact that it's happening, right? So whenever I started, that was there, like people younger to me, I always had that. I used to feel very conscious that people younger to me would know how to do it. I don't know. That feeling was there. But you know what? You get it in no time. You do it twice, thrice. And next time you know how to do. And when you have a good day in court, that gives you confidence, like your confidence goes from here to there. I'm genuinely saying, I'm not saying, it all depends on what you want to do. Right? But I'm genuinely saying it happens like that. Like there are judges who, of course, you would think that they always had knowledge of law, but then it's something if you can gain even now, right? So a trial court judge who has never practiced, he just cracked judicially immediately after college, and then he was elevated in whatever, and now suddenly he's been given a senior's gown after retirement. He has never practiced. So he would feel age is my disadvantage. He would feel the senior's gown is my disadvantage because everyone's expecting me to argue well. That pressure is there. They don't show it, but it's there. But you can come out of it in no time. It just takes 4 or 5 appearances and you're out of it. That fear goes, that confidence comes. If it's there, it's there. If you're lacking confidence in something else, then you have to work on that. But if it's just about, oh, I'm of this age, people will be expecting me to be good. That goes in 4 or 5 appearances. Because there's only as much you can screw up. The judge knows how to pass orders. So initially, you just keep quiet and you'll be like, well, this is the case. This is what I'm appearing for so and so. The judge will go through the file in trial court. That's how it happens. Judge is going through the file. And then he'll ask you a few questions. You'll answer that. First appearance will be like that. You don't know what to say, what not to say, right? How much he would like to read, how much you need to say. All of that happens, and then the judge passes orders, and then you're like, okay, wow, I could have got this order as well. I didn't know what sort of order passed. So you learn like that. There's always a first day. Like you had your first day in school, and you always thought other people are better off than you. Suppose their dad came to drop, and you were looking at them, and you're like, oh, my dad didn't come, I came with that. These things happen at every age. It's very normal and natural. Yeah,
Right,
but
ma'am.
it depends on what you want.
Right, ma'am. Thank you very much. Actually, my was only apprehension because I have been practicing for 35 years technology, and now I switched to the legal field. Though I'm finding it's very interesting than technology what I've been going through. I'm at much senior level at the general manager in the industry. So at this level, I was slightly apprehensive whether to how to perform in the this field particular, which is slightly totally new to me. Actually, I have not been practicing in the administrative or legal fields in the organization, though it has been a managerial role for last quite 10 years. No, I was not very techno managerial. But then legal is a totally different thing. But though it is very interesting, and I have been finding very interesting. I have been
If
performing
it's
those tests.
interesting for you, then that should be enough. Then you don't need to worry. And if you're good at one thing, I mean, it helps. It always helps.
Right, right,
Especially
right.
when you're at a senior position, you have managed people, so you have many skills that people younger to you don't. So
Correct,
you will
correct.
be able to manage a team. You will be able to delegate work. You'll be able to ask them to do it. You can send them to court.
Yeah, right, right, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Most welcome.
Okay.
Anjali, can we unmute Anjali, please? This is the last question, and then we can wrap it up.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you. Ma'am, actually, I am currently doing pursuing my LLB degree. I'm just graduated in 2021. So after that, I'm taking an admission in LLB. Ma'am, I have taken admission in because it's totally a pandemic situations. Like we are totally in a laptop. I'm in the first semester. We are totally in laptop. We have no connections. Like someone to guide. Like people when they get enter into LLB profession, they want to get internships and advocates so they can guide us. But till now, I have found no one, and I think that's actually something hesitations and how to perform, how to be under someone. It's really tough because it's totally like people are telling me, teachers are also telling me, what you are doing in the class, just focus on that, focus on whatever sections you are reading. But ma'am, if I think about, like, I have already not wasted, but I have put in my efforts in graduation also, and I'm not a student like which don't want people are not like in this era who doesn't want to do something after 3 year B. I also want output. I also want to get a job. So it's kind of difficult that we are in a totally online situation. We have no connections with anyone. We don't know how to draft. Like I usually see the YouTube videos, how to draft an RCR. I do whatever, but ma'am, still there is no guidance. And ma'am, I'm like truly like in a situation where I feel like hesitated. Ki agar, like, what if I couldn't what I wanted to be, what if my skills are not there, how will I present my case? Ma'am, it's a genuine problem. And ma'am, if I talk about, like, I have been working in there is a lawyer. So I've been working. So he showed me a case of a Mumbai. There was a Mumbai case in which there was a patient who actually got 24 stitches in right hand. So I seen his photos. So I was like, I was taken aback, like, because that is not something, it's a field like criminal, you need guts also. So okay, I prefer myself, and you also, everyone has their own part. Like you feel you are good in criminal litigation, so you are dealing with those cases and you're comfortable with that. I'm comfortable, like I can't deal with those cases, so I'm comfortable in being like in my mind, I have taken my mind that I want to go to get a job in a firm, to get a corporate. So I'm working on contract law, I'm doing whatever but ma'am, still I am not satisfied where I am today, because I am not getting anything, like कि मैं मतलब like I कि मतलब I be in a position in such kind of skills that I have, so that I can get a company. I'm not satisfied with me, ma'am, totally, but I have no guidance, ma'am, to be very honest. Like I have no one who can guide me, like कि आप जाओ, you can talk to this, that skill कि आपको इस चीज से start करना चाहिए. I'm talking to teachers also, but ma'am, I am I'm getting, and I'm so like, it's not frustrated, but I'm actually worrying right now, because yeah, ma'am, pandemic is not going to be over. I think it's like
Right. Anjali, I hear you and I can relate to you. And let me
yes,
tell you
ma'am.
this is a sign of brightness. This is very normal for people who are meant to be here in life. Trust me. This is this is like a normal, very normal to have these kind of worries, because that's what makes you to work harder. That's what makes you always threatened, as if you need to do more, right? Then at some stage you get that clarity. Then at some stage something happens, and then you choose to remain contented and stuff, all that in life. But right now, this is very normal. And let me tell you, you just reminded me of a long email I had sent to Faisal sir. And he used to be around. I used to ask him, like, he would himself say things to us that you should read this, you should do this, you should do this, right? So when he left and a year passed, and I was like, I can't do all of it, right? So I wanted to do a lot and I couldn't do all of it. And I was like, am I lagging behind? How would I know if I'm behind? How would I know if I would be able to compete in the profession with people. How do I know who is doing what? Is it enough what I'm doing? But there's so much more to do, right? So it's not pandemic. It's a very, very normal thought process that you're meant to have, right? So the thing is, one is dealing with your anxiety. That's the separate thing. That has got nothing to do with anything else you do. You may be putting a lot of efforts, but if you're anxious, then that's not real, okay? That's anxiety that you need to deal with. If you don't deal with it, it will affect your performance, it will affect your ability to put in your effort. So deal with it separately. How, I don't know, but you need to deal with that separately. If it's too much, if it's really bothering, if it's affecting your work, if it's at an optimum level, then it will give you a kind of, it will keep you motivated to work harder, then that's fine. If it's way more, if it's crippling you, then you need to perhaps, I will say you can see a therapist, you can talk, you get a safe space, you'll understand what is causing it, why are you so anxious, etc. Right? That's separate. But as far as this pandemic causing all of this, the kind of skills you need to develop, how to develop, all of that is concerned. So obviously there are various ways of doing it. These, of course, when you attend these, you just get an idea of what to do. Just so then you can, as I said, you can, start writing articles, you can start reading stuff, right? So it's never enough. Even as a practitioner, there's so much I want to do. It's never, ever, never going to be enough. Don't worry about that. Just know your strengths. Keep working on your weaknesses. Know your weaknesses as well, right? And then you keep developing your skills, whichever you can when you're a student. Apply for internships. It's not like it's pandemic, you won't get internships. You will get internships. See, just like you said, criminal, you don't want to do, but still, see if it's just those photographs that made you feel the way you did, or generally you don't want to read those kind of narrations and stuff. Fine. Then also work do an internship in firms, do an internship with individual lawyers, see where you're more comfortable with, in which setting, like I had realized I'm not comfortable in a firm kind of structure. There's so many people who go to a firm and leave within a year, right? Because they get in like top tier firms and stuff, they leave in no time because they haven't really put themselves, when they were doing an internship, they had not put themselves in those places and see how, if they can function in that environment, right? So just do internships in those places. Right now, you can't put yourself in those environments, but please keep doing internships, right? As far as practical based skills are concerned, when you do internships, it develops, right? You get a hang of, you learn something, and that's enough, right? You just have to keep learning something. That's it. And the other question somebody asked was, where can I get criminal cases, arguments, audios, or videos? Karnataka has started live streaming, so please, you are also from Bangalore, so you can make use of that, right?
There is just one question which I'll like to take up from Megha, if I can just ask. So she's a first generation law aspirant who is going to clear graduation in 2022 itself. And to be brutally honest, she has interest in both civil and criminal law. However, all her internships experiences till now have been mostly in the civil side, civil litigation, since the advocates don't seem confident enough to get us directly involved in criminal cases. So I have she has closely drafted and counseled clients for their civil matters, and though they have dealt extensively in criminal lines too, but despite making all the efforts, she didn't came. How can she pave the way with all the civil litigation experience towards the criminal litigations, which is actually her aim?
Which year is she in?
Final year.
Finally, so that's not a problem. Like even if you haven't done an internship in a criminal chamber, that's not a problem. If you have not worked and then you want to work somewhere and you don't want to work as a fresher, then that can be a problem, right? But if you're a fresher, then joining a criminal chamber shouldn't be a problem. Just because you haven't done an internship in a criminal chamber doesn't mean you won't get it, right? But again, if you can have something to show there, and I think Anjali was also referring to this, I think brushing up your basics is always there. That's like the basic thing to do. So don't leave that, right? So if you remember stuff, that only helps you. So you can always refer back, but there are few things that has to be on your fingertips, and that happens when you keep dealing with it again and again, right? So that much you can keep doing, so that when you are being interviewed, you can answer questions, right? Even as a fresher, you should be able to do that. Right, thank you. Shivansh, would you like to talk about the course and end the session?
Yeah, so basically to reduce the difference and distance between what you actually learned in the law school and where you are coming from, and what actually happens in the real scenario in the criminal law and litigation. That's why, keeping that in mind, we are bringing this course on criminal law and litigation in collaboration with Sanchita ma'am. So which is starting from 5th of February. So this course is basically structured in such a boutique way that you'll gain more practical learnings parallel to the things you have learned in this profession in any law school or during your experience of internships or being an advocate. So we'll be having 2 hours live classes on each day, Saturday and Sunday, over a Zoom only. So I'll just talk about few basic advantages of this course. Like there will be completely live sessions, so you can just ask your questions and clear your doubts, concepts, and everything. And classes are to be held on the weekend, so in between a week you can complete the assignments questions, that too practical related, like drafting of different and important documents in the criminal law and litigation. So that would be also being assessment part of your learning throughout the course. And as you all know, the Sanchita ma'am will be taking the course. So she has been practicing since 10 years in the criminal law. So there will be no one better than her to teach you more about that particular part. So apart from it, like we are offering one bonus offer for you guys, those who have attended this particular webinar. So this offer will be applicable only for 24 hours from today, and till tomorrow the link will be open. That you can just also refer to the course link which Shivang from my team has shared, and there's a discount link over there, so you can claim the discount by registering over that link. And if you have any doubts related to it, and you can just ask us. Our team contact numbers and the email ID has been put it over there in the chat box. So these are the few things, and if ma'am wants to add something about it, then
No, I think that covers it all. I think all of you, some people were expressing that concern that as a student, what can you do? So I feel this can be really useful. We have particularly designed this course keeping those requirements in mind. As I said, you're going to compete with people who are experienced, right? So how to give you that edge, that keeping that in mind, we have developed assignments for you. We have, so during live classes, it's not just doubts that you can ask. I will be training you. I will be training you in different skills that I told you. Uh, but of course, you have to do assignments, and I can just tell you that you will learn drafting skills. That sometimes, see, that's the thing. You do go for internships. Not everyone will be as dedicated to teach you something. And when you go there as an associate, people expect you to already know everything. People will pay you only if you can do. So these days, the market for freshers is very bad because you are getting experienced people at the same, money. So therefore, people are preferring to hire experienced people because nobody wants to train young people. So I thought, let's do this so that there are more trained people out there. Because even during internships, I try very hard to do that, but sometimes there are months when I'm very, very busy. I can't. But this is something where compulsively I have to do this. It's designed in a way that it can't be that I won't give you an assignment. It can't be that you won't be assessed. We have a team to help me in that. So that way we will be able to train more people. That's the goal.
there is one question from Nandini. What is the duration? So the duration of this course is 2 months. So we'll be having the classes on the weekends. So there'll be 2 months long course. And I hope you register as soon as possible because we have a very limited seats available for you. Like we are having a short batches. So and there is one feedback form link is being provided in the chat box. You can just fill that form and you'll get all the details over the mail. So thank you so much, ma'am, for guiding us on the criminal law and the side how we'll be
There's a
developing.
question of timings on weekends. So basically, it would mostly be in the evening, right? So that you all are available during that time. Sundays it can be anytime, but I would prefer evenings unless, I'm a very person who believes in democracy. So if everyone says, no, ma'am, I want it in the morning, I can do it in the morning. I know you would want to get up in the morning. So evenings. Yes, please.
There is, I think, one more question. So if I can just unmute Sudhanshu, I think he's raising hand. I'll just pass.
Sure. And Dilip as well. Yes, please. Dilip, I think you have unmuted. So either of you, please go ahead.
Please go.
Ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah, hello, ma'am. It was a nice session. And this is Sudhanshu. And after that, I went for one year LLM. And last to last year, that in June 2019, I cleared NET also. But somehow I didn't gone through any PhD. Okay, so 2 years back, I was also selected for a PhD, and due to just 1 marks low, I wasn't finally selected. I was in the second list. Okay, so coming to the point, let's cut short. See, I am preparing for the judiciary, and right now I am practicing in Patna High Court. But while practicing, I see that I'm not a very good lawyer. Obviously, I was preparing for a judiciary. I don't have any practical exposure. So should I go switch back to civil court? I mean the lower court, the district court, and then go and after for 2-3 years, then to high court. Would that be feasible?
Right. So the thing is, you need to understand first what is it that you are not being good at right now. How can you be better at it? Sometimes you can be better at it, but by just being at it, right? So if you were, for example, if you missed out something like that, next time you won't miss it out. Those blunders sometimes do happen, so that you don't make it ever again. All lawyers commit blunders. So don't underestimate yourself if you have committed blunders. That's important.
One good thing is that I'm getting praised by my seniors that I'm good in drafting, though I don't know, I haven't learned anywhere. I learned from what reading by the files. I haven't gone through any books, though it was a paper in my, I think it was in 6th semester last year.
Right, so it comes with practice. That's why, so all those who are students, I'm telling them to do that. But it doesn't mean that if you haven't done it, then you won't get it. Right? For example, I was doing a lot of academic writing at some stage. So to shift to legal writing was a bit of this. And now I can't shift to that. So that happens. It takes a while to pick up that skill. So for that, you can also, I told you how to develop those. You can go through judgments and stuff. You'll get the familiarity of legal language. Those can always help you. You can listen to more arguments in court. That will help you. Right? All that. So don't sit idle and just keep doing something or the other because you know what you need to develop. Right? And with time it will come to. That's no problem. I don't think. Can you please, Shivam, check the feedback link?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'll just check it.
I think it's asking for permission on the organizer's hand.
I'll just giving you the another link on this. You can just try.
Yeah, that'll be better.
I'll just drop in the chat box for you.
Great. Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Khil. Thank you. Somebody else.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think we hope all will be taking something new learnings from here, and will be see you all in the course. Hope to see everyone in the course. Thank you so much.
Sure, definitely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.